How would you like to sell your agency for $10 million and, well, enjoy the process while you're doing it? That's what a client has tasked me with doing. And so we're going to go into the major factors that we're going to focus on in his business to make it worth $10 million to someone. Now, to make sure that this doesn't come off as clickbait, if you're here thinking, I'm going to be able to sell my business for $10 million and work like 4 hours a week or something like that, well, then you're in the wrong spot, because there's no way that's ever going to happen. But if you're one of the people who has the ambition and the persistence and the hard-headedness necessary to build a business worth millions of dollars, then we're going to follow the steps of a very wise businessman.
Startup, cash in, sell out, bro down.
And we're going to focus on his second and third steps. We're going to focus on cashing in and selling out. So it's time to bro down. To cash in, your business has to be worth something. It's got to make money, or it has to have some form of intrinsic value that somebody finds important to their goals, to the things that they want to achieve. If you don't have a business that's generating tons of cash, then it needs to have something else that makes it valuable. And as we get deeper into this, you'll realize that having lots of cash and some other intrinsic value are actually critical for an agency to sell for millions of dollars. How much you want to sell your business for is the driving factor in what you need to do in the cash-in phase. How much money do you need to be generating? How much profit do you need to be generating to make sure that you can get the number that you're after? My client wants to sell his business for $10 million. So we're working on the steps he needs to take to go from a run rate of $1.5 million, that's what he should achieve this year, to being worth about $10 million. From having an inside look at his business and all the factors of where he's at right now. Sure, he's doing $1.5 million in revenue, but his business is probably only worth about $1 million, maybe $1 million to the right buyer at this stage because of how small it is. And we're going to get into some of that in the whole cash in and sell out, is that you have to be worth a certain amount before you get a decent multiple. And I'll go into multiples and valuation and stuff like that in a second. What's going great for my client is that he's going to double his revenue from last year. So that's a great growth rate, which is going to help his valuation. As soon as we restructure certain elements of his business and increase his revenue significantly, plus his net income, we will be able to achieve a much higher valuation. Valuation is basically what someone thinks your business is worth. You can use third parties to evaluate your business and give you a value. A basic agency, and that's kind of where my client is right now. He's just a basic agency, has a good service, provides it to his clients, they get good results, everybody's happy, and he's making money, but there's no secret sauce. And so a basic agency, if it's worth $5 million, it will get about a 4x multiple. If it's not worth at least $5 million, its valuation is not worth at least $5 million, what will happen is it'll get about a 2x multiple on net income. As an example, one of my other clients, he sold his agency and he was doing around $3 million a year, got a valuation of his business, and he had nearly $1 million in net income. And the valuation came back at about $1.5 million. How crazy is that? After he sold his business, paid taxes on it, he had about $1 million in the bank. Well, that's not too bad. You know, having $1 million in your bank account at one time's pretty cool. But the fact is, had he just kept the business for 2 more years, he would have earned the same amount of money after taxes. Granted, that's 2 years of his life that he did not want to keep putting into his business. That's a major factor in why a lot of agencies sell, is that somebody just wants out. They've got something of value. It's not an amazing value, but it's of value and they just want to cash out. So they get their $1 million and then they walk away. Even though they were earning after taxes over $500,000 a year, it still makes sense if you're in the right spot in your life to sell out. Back to that 4x multiple. So that's 4 times your net income, your earnings. And that really only happens when you're worth about $5 million and up. The reason that $5 million is so important is that private equity only go down to about $5 million. Anything smaller is just not really worth their effort. All the time and effort in buying the business, it's not really worth it. If a larger company is going to buy you, you're in the same boat. They just don't want the hassle of buying something that's worth less than $5 million. It does happen, but it's rare. If your business doesn't hit that mark, then what's going to happen is your valuation, your multiple of earnings, is going to be cut in half. Maybe you get 3x, but it's probably not going to happen. It's probably going to be closer to 2x, or maybe just 1 times your revenue. That's probably all you're going to get for your agency. If you're under $1 million, you're probably going to get less than 1 times your annual revenue. Most likely significantly less than that. The reason is it's just a job. If you're under $1 million, you don't have a leadership team. Actually, if you're under $3 million, odds are you don't really have a leadership team. So you don't have a leadership team, you don't have long-term contracts, you don't have all sorts of other factors like proprietary systems, trademarks, and software and things like that that you own that are yours, then no one wants to buy a job for very much money. Probably not even the amount that you earn that you get to take home in a single year. Now let's sell out. Let's get the biggest number we possibly can from a buyer. And really, the best buyer we could ever find is a strategic buyer. We've got something special. Patents, trademarks, a proprietary system, an amazing brand. All 4 of those things. Maybe even we created a software that does something that is of value to another buyer or to another market. Those things make your business very valuable. If you got long-term contracts like 2-3 years, then that's pretty good. That's attractive to a buyer, but it's not that attractive anymore. Long-term contracts are pretty rare these days. Most likely, you watching this, you're probably just doing month to month, that any client could just drop you in 30 days. That's definitely not worth anything to anyone because all your clients could disappear in the next 30 days. That makes it really risky for a buyer. So the only type of buyer that really wants that, if you're a small agency, is a strategic buyer. You've got something very special that they want. Even if you have everything going for you, you're probably going to get an earn out. You want to sell out, but your buyer wants you to earn out. And you could call that like seller financing or whatever, but basically you're going to have to stay in the business for at least 2 years after you sell. It's so common in the agency world. If you can avoid it, great. Most likely to get all the value out of your business in the sale, you're going to have to take an earnout. And this is how they tend to go. A 2-year deal where you stay working in the company and you get a significant portion of the value of your business up front. So say a $10 million sale, my client, he'll get about $8 million and then he'll have a 2-year earnout period to get $2 million. And a lot of times what the buyer does is they put a clause in there that says you have to meet specific growth targets to get that $2 million. I've seen some earnout clauses that were onerous, that it was nearly impossible to achieve those growth goals. So say my client, he's doubling his business this year, and say he doubles it next year, and then he goes to sell. And what could happen is the buyer might say, your business needs to double one more time in the next year for you to actually get the $2 million. And it's possible that you might be nearing a slowdown where you're getting to a plateau in the market that you might not be able to overcome. So what could happen is you get this onerous earnout, and then you don't meet those KPIs and you don't get the money, or you don't get all the money. And that is crazy common. The best way to avoid the earnout is to make sure your agency is so valuable all on its own that they don't need you. The buyer could just remove you from the business and it would keep running, or they could extract the value that they're actually buying the business for. They could just extract that and install that into their own business and then capitalize on it. So they're not actually buying you. But most agencies don't function like that. The founders, the partners, the owners are typically the main drivers of new business in an agency. Even one that's doing $50 million a year, the partners tend to be the main drivers of business for those agencies. So that means that they can't just buy the business and let you go away. There will be an earnout. If you want to avoid the earnout, then you've got to make sure your business has intrinsic value. Here's an example of intrinsic value. A friend of mine sold his agency a few years ago. He built up a list of buyers and prospects that were very valuable. This wasn't just like a generic list of names. These people had a relationship with his agency. Let's call them an audience. So he built up this massive audience for his agency. That's what the buyer really wanted. So that's what he sold. He sold his agency in two parts, the list and the agency. So what happened was his business was worth about $5 million, but he doubled the value. So he was able to extract this valuable list, sell it to one business for millions of dollars, and then he sold the agency separately, had to do an earnout, but he sold that agency separately and got the value of that agency. Selling out in the agency game sure ain't easy, but cashing in is fairly simple. That's what I've focused on my whole career, is just cashing in, not selling out, just cashing in on the services I provide. And here's the steps that I use for that. 1, get clients. 2, be efficient and effective, because you got to have great margins. 3, extract as much value from your agency as possible. 4, invest all that value, your profit, into other assets. Here's the thing, even if you're going to sell out one day, cashing in and doing these 4 steps, making sure that you extract as much value from your agency as you possibly can while still growing it, is going to make sure you end up wealthy. You don't want to leave all the money in an agency because it doesn't make it more valuable to leave that money there. You need to extract that value out, put it into other income producing assets or ones that are going to gain in value significantly. And that's going to be building your wealth while you're doing your agency, while you're cashing in. Then one day you might be big enough, special enough to sell out for true bro down money. Now you know the thought processes behind what I'm doing to help one of my clients build his agency so that it's worth $10 million, and what's going to happen in the process. Now it's time to bro down on that like button, share, subscribe, comment, and you know what to do with all those socials. And I'll see you in the next video.